So Lawrence Tynes said something about the Giants this season missed the man and leader more than the player, and that's saying something, talking about Saquon Barkley. Well, I responded and talked about how Barkley missed 24 games here. He averaged less than 4 yards carry, had 1,000 yards twice in his career here, and we were a combined 25, 48, 1. I said they don't miss him at all. This team is exactly the same with or without him, which, of course, some fans don't like to hear that because they're like, no, that's not true. You got to build around guys like Saquon Barkley. Adriana, let me get your – we always start with the lady first. Give me your thoughts on this whole Saquon Barkley thing. Was it wrong to let him go? Because people tell me, oh, Joe Schoen let him go for nothing. They let him go for nothing. And I'm like, I don't understand. It's like selective memory. They offered him a big contract in 2022. Yes. He didn't take it. So what is your opinion on the whole Saquon Barkley thing?
My thing is he was with the team for 5-6 years. And yes, he had a great career with the Giants, but he also was very injury prone. And I mean, technically the offense was better when he was on the team, but we also only won 6 games last year when he was on the team. And the last 3 games that we won were because our defense knew how to get turnovers, which this year apparently they were allergic to. So I think everyone makes a big deal about the leadership, and I'm not in the locker room, so I can't attest to this, but I really do not believe that Saquon being in that locker room would have made this team win 10 games this year. I just don't believe it. Like, you're talking about one player, and I don't think that one person is enough to galvanize this entire team and make someone like Tay Banks, who decided to slack off this year and have a bad year for whatever the reasons were. I don't think that someone like Saquon being in the locker room would have done anything to change that. There were so many issues with this team that him being here, I don't think would have made any type of difference. Like I said, he was here for however many years. We won one playoff game, which was a fluke, clearly, because we've had 3 years of Dable and only one of them has been good. So
when people said this to me, Adriana, about, oh, they want to play, I'm like, you could say the same thing about Daniel Jones then, right?
Right.
And of course, if you bring up Daniel Jones as a sort of subject, because how can you play Jones instead of Barkley? Anthony, what's your opinion on this whole Saquon thing? Would it really matter if we brought him back? Would we be any better? I'm not talking about 2 games better. Are we a contender with Saquon Barkley?
No, we are not a contender with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley doesn't have a 2,000-yard rushing season with the New York Giants. They're not coached the same way as the Eagles. They don't have the same offensive line talent as the Eagles, and they don't have the same wide receiver talent as the Eagles, because that does a lot for the Eagles' rushing attack. Saquon doesn't face nearly as many loaded boxes in Philadelphia as he did during his time with the Giants, because they have legit playmakers on the outside that defenses have to account for. When he was with the Giants, they didn't have any talent around him. They didn't have playmakers on the outside. They didn't have a passing attack that you could respect. Defenses would load up the box against him and slow him down. And even with Malik Neighbors, I don't think that would change much either, because they don't have a quarterback. So nothing's going to change for this team until they get a quarterback. The only thing that did change when Saquon Barkley left, I do think that had an impact on the locker room. I think he was really well liked, really well respected. Tommy DeVito has even said as much, and so have others. Isaiah Simmons, a lot of guys have spoken out about that and said his leadership has been missed. So I'll take their word for it. But I don't think that's leadership missed that causes you to lose 10 games in a row during the season. It's Saquon Barkley being out there wouldn't have changed that. Maybe we win 1 or 2 more, as you said, Bad Dog, but we're not winning 5 or 7 games.
At that point, Anthony, we're not even in a better spot anyway. I mean, we'd have a worse draft pick at this point.
And then he'd still be a free agent this offseason because they kept Joe Schoen. So
right.
Yeah.
Chris, how do you?
Yeah, I agree with, for the most part, I agree with what they said. I mean, I think if Shane could do it all over again, I think he would have signed him to the extension after 2022. I think he would have given him the extra $2 or $3 million a year, or whatever he wanted, to get it done. Because
do you think that has more to do with the fact that he went to Philadelphia?
I think that's part of it. And I think Shane, even though I think this team wouldn't be much better in the win-loss department, maximum 2 more wins if Saquon Barkley's on this team. We saw what he was last year. Not his fault. Like, if anything, the performance that Saquon Barkley has had since he's left the Giants shouldn't be like everybody looks at it differently. Like, some fans look at it like, I wish Saquon was still here and we'd be winning games, and he was my favorite. The way I look at it is, it makes me upset that the New York Giants don't have a team that's able to maximize a guy like Saquon Barkley. And it's not just with Saquon Barkley. We've seen it with numerous other players that have left this team. Xavier McKinney's another perfect example, right? He leads the league in interceptions this year, that they leave the Giants and they become better. So he's just one of several examples. So that to me is apparent, but the narratives come out. So it's not a great look for Shane. So I think if he could have done it all over again, he would have given Barkley the $2 or $3 extra million per year, and he probably would tag Jones if he could do it all over again. He was steadfast in that. And I do think he may have not taken into account how important his leadership was to that locker room. Now, to be fair to Shane this year, I don't think the locker room completely cratered. It cratered for 1 week, and that was after they pulled Daniel Jones. And I felt like that week the team just felt like they were punched in the gut, and they did not compete that week. But after that, I felt like the team competed. So I don't necessarily know if they lost the locker room this year. But yeah, I think that was a valuable part of Barkley that maybe he underestimated a bit, but it wouldn't have made a big difference in terms of the wins and losses. It may have been a better culture, and maybe people wouldn't be talking about how things were going up in flames as much as they were, and some of the players would be happier playing here. But this team doesn't have more than 5, maybe 6 wins of Saquon Barkley still on this team. He's a tremendous football player, but he was a tremendous football player that we couldn't maximize. Right. It was like I've said before, it's like having a Toyota Prius with the best rims. There's no point. The Philadelphia Eagles had like an Escalade, and they put rims on it. It was just a much better fit for them. They're able to get the most out of his ability. So it never made sense after the year where Shane decided not to keep him the first time to keep him this offseason based off where the Giants were. It didn't make any sense.
Right. The way I look at Barkley is a lot like Odell Beckham. He was a like a beam of light in a really dark cloud of a team, because we didn't win any games with Odell Beckham either. We won nothing with him. We went to the playoffs 1 year, and he was a great player, but he was injury prone. He was electric, but we didn't win any games. And fans had the same feeling about him when he left, and we didn't get any better after he left, and we weren't really good when he was here. And Barkley, kind of the same thing. That was really the reason to tune in to watch the Giants. There's no other reason, and maybe that's why some guys are hurt. And I know it hurt a lot of people when he went to Philly. It didn't hurt me. It pissed me off because I can't stand the freaking Eagles at all. I mean, I absolutely hate him. You just knew he was going to end up there, and he knew if he stayed healthy, he was going to have a big year, because, like Anthony said, the team is set up for a guy like that to succeed, where you can't just cram the box because there's so many other weapons out there. And their line, if you look, again, Barkley with the Giants was after like 1.8 yards, he was contacted. And in Philadelphia, it's like 2.9 yards is contacted. So he's getting like an extra yard in Philadelphia before he makes a lot
more 20-plus yard runs like we became accustomed to seeing his first year while he was with the team. We even said it. We're like, he doesn't look as explosive as he used to. Well, when you get a running head start and you don't get touched for that extra yard or 2 yards because of the offensive line, you see explosive plays as a result. When you have 2 dominant wide receivers on the outside that have to spread out the offense, it's only going to help him. Same thing for Jalen Hurts, right? If Jalen Hurts, man, that guy has the best running back in the entire league. He has one of the top 3 or 4 receiving cores in the entire league. He has the best offensive line in the entire league. And he didn't look that good this past week. So he has everything you could possibly want. And as a Giants fan, I'm jealous of that. I'm not upset that we didn't bring Barkley back, because in my opinion, it didn't make sense because of how bad our team is. And we weren't in a position to be able to maximize his abilities and his age and his injury history and everything else. I'm upset that after 4 years of Dave Gettleman, after now 3 years of Joe Shane, we're still where we are, which feels like at the beginning. So that's what I'm upset about, that we weren't in a position to be able to retain Saquon Barkley and be able to maximize his ability.
Yeah, that's what sucks. That's why it's such a bad team, because my whole point of this thing was it's not his fault. I mean, he was the best player on offense on our team, but we're not winning games. And I've said this a million times. I'm not a player guy. I don't give a shit about the name on the back of the jersey. I care about this, man. I don't care who's wearing the jersey. I'm rooting for the jersey. When they leave, it's not like I have any ill will. Now, I didn't hope that he did good, obviously, because he's playing for Philadelphia. It's the jersey. It ain't him. I don't care about Saquon. I don't know Saquon as a person. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's an Eagle, so I can't stand him. McKinney going to the Packers. Good for you, McKinney. I hope nothing but the best for Xavier McKinney.
I was definitely rooting for him this past week.
The laundry has everything to do with it. It's got nothing to do with the player at all.